After the hugely successful PS2, Sony prepared to announce to the world its successor, and in 2005 they announced the PlayStation 3, which promised to have an ultra-powerful cell processor that would be capable of revolutionary graphics. Except after the announcement, the reality hit, and it wasn't too kind. The first blow came when Sony announced the price. At $599, most players agreed that that was an unreasonable ask, especially when you compared it to the 360 and the Wii. Compounding the issue was the cell processor. Even though it was very powerful, it was complicated, which means taking advantage was a lot of work because the architecture was different, debugging was more complicated, and being able to port a game was not a simple process. So that led to a very bare library upon the launch of the PS3. In contrast, the 360 had a head start. It had been out for a year, so it already had an established library. So when you were looking at buying a new console that was more expensive but had less games, the choice was obvious. And just when things couldn't get worse, Sony was dealt another blow, because systems started to show the yellow light of death, which meant some kind of general hardware failure. And it made the system completely useless. So when you already bought the most expensive console, not only were you not getting a library of games, you were also getting subpar versions because devs weren't able to get the most out of the cell processor, but now your fancy new hardware was also failing, meaning that trust in the company was going further and further down the drain. And each console was already costing money for Sony, and they were working in a deficit, and now having this major hardware issue meant they were about to lose even more money, risking the whole company's foray into the gaming industry. But as you already know, this wasn't the end of PlayStation, because around this same time, people's rooms who were already owning a 360 started to glow an eerie red caused by the red ring of death. As this was all happening, Sony saw there was an opportunity for them to turn the tide. So in 2009, they released the PlayStation 3 Slim, which was a more cost-friendly and reliable console. Along with this, they had slowly been working away at releasing some blockbuster hits, like Uncharted 2 and The Last of Us. By the end of its life cycle, the PS3 regained all the ground that it had lost at the beginning. It sold 87 million units, and it was 4 million units more than the 360 sold. Although it wasn't a very good journey, it was a very educational journey, because Sony realized how important it was to make things that were powerful but not too complicated and unique, and just how important a library really was for a console, which are things that it seems Microsoft took no note of. But that'll be in another video. So there you have it. That's how Sony saved itself from the brink, almost becoming another footnote in the history of video games. Join me next time when we explore another incredible tale from the history of video games.